strike, and the score!
And McClellan, he could go. Burst of speed.
The header, another goal's in!
Heisman Memorial Trophy. Bryce Young.
A shot with the left foot, 3-1, Crimson Tide.
We talked about Alabama.
Alabama is still Alabama.
Roll Tide and welcome to the Crimson Tide Productions studio inside Bryant-Denny Stadium for another episode of Tide TV This Week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by my co-host Kenzie Hughes. Roll Tide, Kenzie. Alabama's 2-0.
2-0 is right, Roger. It was a hot one, but a good one. The number 1 ranked Crimson Tide took on the 22nd ranked Texas in Austin, and Roger, it was hot, loud, and a great atmosphere on Saturday in Austin.
Certainly was, as Will Reichard opened the game with a 52-yard field goal, tying his career long. With the score tied at 3, Jace McClellan hit the hole on the right side. He would not be caught after this, as he goes 81 yards for the score. First touchdown of the game, and the Crimson Tide were up 10-3.
With Texas leading 16-10 in the fourth quarter and just over 4 minutes to go, Bryce Young ran to his left, stopped, and threw a dart to Jahmyr Gibbs in the end zone for the touchdown. After the extra point, Alabama was on top 17-16, and the Longhorns retook the lead at 19-17 on a 49-yard field goal with just over a minute to play. But just like last season in the Iron Bowl, Bryce Young and the Alabama offense marched right down the field.
Yeah, the moment wasn't too big for the reigning Heisman Trophy winner as he helped set up the Crimson Tide with a game-winning kick with a 20-yard run. Will Reichard from 33 yards out drills it down the middle for the game-winning kick with just 10 seconds remaining. It was a close one, but the Tide pulled it out on the road in a very hostile environment, 20-19.
We've been in situations like this before, like Auburn last year, on the sideline, we were just saying, we've been here before the whole offseason fourth quarter program. That's what we're training for. We train for moments like this and games like this. That's why you come to Alabama.
That's where we love to be at. We know what it takes. We have no wavering. I feel confident in that position as a unit. We do. We all embrace that challenge, but we know what it means. When it's time for us to step up and, in those crunch time moments, that's what we're made for.
Tough matchup for Alabama against Texas, but the Crimson Tide were resilient and really came up big in the end when they had to.
They sure did, Roger, and one of those that came up big in the final seconds of the game was senior kicker Will Reichard.
Reichard became the first Alabama kicker since 2005 to kick a game-winning field goal, as his 33-yard kick with 10 seconds left in the game was the difference in the 20-19 win over Texas. Reichard also tied his career long with a 52-yard field goal on the Tide's first drive of the game.
And Coach Saban and the staff chose their players of the week, and for this week's win, they chose 5. Bryce Young was selected on offense, with DeMarco Hellams being selected on defense.
And no surprise, on special teams, Will Reichard was selected along with Deontay Lawson and Henry To'oTo'o.
The sports world was focused on the number 1 ranked Crimson Tide and the 22nd ranked Longhorns on Saturday. Saturday's matchup between Alabama and Texas was the most streamed regular season college football or NFL game in Fox history.
Wow, there have been a lot of great football games on Fox, and for this one to be the most watched online ever is really saying something.
And Roger, the NFL kicked off this past weekend, and this is probably no surprise to any Alabama fan, but the Crimson Tide have the most players in the NFL by any college.
As week 1 began, Alabama had 58 players on NFL rosters. That's 5 more than LSU, 7 more than Ohio State, and 15 more than Georgia.
And with the NFL kicking off this past weekend, let's take a look at our Crimson Tide and the NFL Players of the Week.
Minkah Fitzpatrick had a huge day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Fitzpatrick intercepted Joe Burrow's first pass of the season and returned it for a touchdown. Then with the game tied at 20 with 2 seconds left, Fitzpatrick blocked what would have been the game-winning extra point, sending it into overtime, where the Steelers defeated the Bengals 23-20.
Jalen Hurts led the Philadelphia Eagles to a 38-35 victory over the Detroit Lions. Hurts completed 18 of 32 passes for 243 yards, while also rushing for 90 yards and a touchdown.
And O.J. Howard, he's only been with the Houston Texans organization for about 2 weeks, but guess what? He had 2 touchdowns in his Texans debut. Howard had 2 catches for 38 yards and scored Houston's only touchdowns of the day as the Texans tied the Indianapolis Colts at 20 apiece.
Some big performances to open the season, Roger. Those 3, along with Jerry Jeudy having over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown, Tua passing for almost 300 yards in the Dolphins' win over the Patriots, and Eddie Jackson had a big interception in the Bears' win over the 49ers.
Was an exciting week for the Crimson Tide in the NFL and also on the gridiron Saturday in Austin. Before we go to break, let's take an all-access look at the Crimson Tide's thrilling 20-19 win over Texas.
Darrell K. Royal, Texas Memorial Stadium. opened in 1924, and you take a look, this is the 10th meeting between these two teams. Back, Gibbs again, down the sideline, first down and more. Young over the middle, fires and it's caught. Kobe Prentice, the freshman.
The hold from Burnham, it is up and it is good. 52 yards. And McClellan in the backfield, he gets the handoff, goes right side, cuts it up 20, 25, 30. Foot race, forget catching him. Touchdown, Alabama.
Ain't no running.
Turner really laid his body. Eboigbe brings him down. For the lead, bad snap, and he hooked it. Young, looking, Young in trouble! Shovels it off, but nothing. Steps up, and he's sacked!
It's been about the penalties for Alabama.
From 29 yards away, and it's good. Texas leading number 1.
Being a great player is not just about playing great. It's about being great when greatness is needed. And that's what Alabama needs right now from Bryce Young.
At the Texas 6, empty set again. Young, pump fake, looks to his left, rolls to his left, stops, looks into the end zone. Catch is made, touchdown Alabama. Jahmyr Gibbs makes the grab in the back of the end zone, and Alabama has tied it up. He'll get the snap, he'll hand it off, no, he'll keep it, he'll go down. A huge sack recorded by Will Anderson Jr.
Young over the middle, Gibbs with running room. Looking, sideline, caught, it's tied in. Latu, Young under pressure, Blaze contained. Young runs it, Young, first down and more. So here comes Will Reichard, clean snap, good hole, and once again right down Main Street. And Alabama takes a 20-19 lead.
Tide TV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
The lights of Tuscaloosa. What a finish we're in store for.
If you're looking to visit this stadium. They got it figured out here.
It's more than a buzz at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's electric. Here comes the Tide.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. After a tough matchup on the road in Texas this past weekend, Alabama returns home this weekend to take on Louisiana-Monroe.
That's right, Roger. And for a preview of this week's matchup between the Crimson Tide and the Warhawks, our Christopher England joins us now.
After playing last week on the road, Alabama returns home this weekend to take on Louisiana-Monroe. The Crimson Tide and Warhawks have played 3 times, with the Tide holding a 2-1 advantage. The last time the two schools played was 2015, with the Tide winning 34-0 as Alabama went on to win its 16th national championship that season. The most memorable or forgettable game, if you're an Alabama fan, was 2007. While Monroe defeated Alabama 21-14 in Coach Saban's first season as head coach of the Crimson Tide. That was the last non-conference regular season loss for Alabama under Coach Saban. Since then, the Tide has won a FBS record 54 consecutive non-conference regular season matchups. Directing the Warhawks program is second-year head coach Terry Bowden. Bowden is the son of legendary head coach Bobby Bowden, and he's the former head coach at Auburn. Bowden was head coach of the Auburn Tigers for 6 seasons from 1993 through 1998 and led the Tigers to a perfect 11-0 record in his first season as head coach. Bowden and Coach Saban have never met on the gridiron, but they are very familiar with one another.
Terry was a GA at West Virginia when I was a coach there in whatever year that was, 1978 or 9 or whenever, a long time ago. Coach Bowden was always really great to my family, was a really good friend of my dad's. So I have a tremendous respect for their family, and I don't think anybody has represented our profession and coached with more class than Coach Bowden did. You know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Terry and you know, what he's trying to do at ULM.
Louisiana-Monroe opened the season with a 52-10 loss to Texas in Austin. However, the Warhawks bounced back this past weekend with a 35-7 victory over Nichols at home. ULM is experienced on the offensive side of the ball, returning 9 starters from last season. Leading the ULM offense is sophomore quarterback Chandler Rogers. The JUCO transfer from Blinn College accounted for 308 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns. Rogers is mobile as he rushed for 55 yards, averaging almost 7 yards per carry in the win. However, the Warhawks' leading rusher was Malik Jackson. He finished with 57 yards and a score on 12 carries. The ULM defense doesn't have as much experience as their offense, returning only 4 starters from last season. The Warhawks accounted for 4 tackles for loss in the win over Nichols, with linebacker Tristan Driggers leading the team with 8 tackles, a tackle for loss, and the team's only interception. Driggers also had an interception in the season opener against Texas as he picked off Quinn Ewers on the Longhorns' opening drive of the game. It should be a beautiful day for football on Saturday in Bryant-Denny. The forecast is sunny with a high of 89. Kickoff is scheduled for 3 o'clock. The game will be broadcast on the SEC Network. Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV this week coming up next.
Tide TV This Week is presented by Ford. For great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide. The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
There's a formula for success. It takes practice, persistence, and an unwavering drive. Together, our aspirations become reality. Every triumph has its origin story. Ours begin right here. The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
I need to try it first.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. The Alabama soccer team has been on fire as of late, already knocking off 2 top 20 teams.
Last week, Westhard's squad was ranked 18th in the nation. This week, the Tide has jumped all the way up to number 11. It's the best program history ranking we've ever seen Alabama have. Great season start for the Crimson Tide.
That's right, Roger. And this past Sunday, Alabama took on North Alabama here at home, and Riley Parker showed why she's been named the SEC Offensive Player of the Week 2 weeks in a row, as she scored the first goal of the game with a header.
Alabama scored goal number 2 when Felicia Knox played a ball down the right side, finding Jessica Skorka. She would kick it into the box. It deflects off a North Alabama defender into the net. That goal is Skorka's first of her career.
The final goal of the night came from Raina Reyes. Reyes off the cross from Kat Rogers, kicks it past the goalie on the left side for the goal. That would make it 3-0 Crimson Tide, and that would be the final. It was the 4th shutout of the season as Alabama won their 10th consecutive match in a row at home. After taking on 5th-ranked South Carolina on Thursday night, the 11th-ranked Crimson Tide will host Chattanooga here in Tuscaloosa at 6 p.m.
Also, the Alabama volleyball team was on the road this past weekend as the Tide traveled to Muncie, Indiana for the Ball State tournament. Alabama dropped their opening matches of the tournament to Green Bay and Ball State by 3-1 scores, but rebounded to close out the tournament with a 3-1 win over Arkansas State.
You know, Roger, the Crimson Tide has been one of the best in the nation at the service line. Alabama is ranked 4th nationally in aces with 85 and 6th in aces per set at 2.43.
This weekend, Alabama volleyball is back on the road for a 3rd straight weekend as the Tide will head to Fort Worth, Texas for the Horned Frog Invitational.
The Alabama men's golf team started the season off with a bang.
Certainly did, as the Tide captured the Rod Myers Invitational Championship this past weekend in Durham, North Carolina. Crimson Tide finished the 2-day 54-hole event with a team total of 13 under par. That was 11 strokes better than second place Duke. Cannon Claycomb claimed medalist honors with an 11 under par to lead the Tide to its first team championship in 2 years.
Thomas Ponder finished 2nd at 5 under par, with Nick Dunlap finishing 1 stroke behind him, tied for 3rd. The Tide returns to competition this weekend for the the Olympia Fields Fighting Illini Invitational in Chicago.
The Alabama women's golf team opened their season this past week at the Annika Intercollegiate in Minnesota. The women finished 11th, led by Benedetta Moresco, as she tied for 26th overall at 4 over par.
Coach Mick Potter's squad returns to the course next Friday for the Mason Rudolph Championship in Franklin, Tennessee.
Well, he tied his career long with a 52-yard field goal and then hit the game winner with 10 seconds left to give Alabama the 20-19 win over Texas. When we come back, we'll have a special sit-down interview with the Crimson Tide's kicker, Will Reichard. That's next, right here on Tide TV This Week.
The lights of Tuscaloosa. What a finish we're in store for.
If you're looking to visit this stadium. They got it figured out here.
It's more than a buzz at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's electric. Here comes a tie.
Welcome back. He's one of the best kickers in Alabama football history. Will Reichard was perfect in 2020. He converted all 14 field goal attempts and also all 84 point-after attempts.
That's right, Roger. He's been perfect so far on this season, hitting all 4 field goals, tying his career long with a 52-yarder, and, just maybe kicking the game-winning field goal with 10 seconds left this past weekend against Texas.
He has ice in his veins, Kenzie. He doesn't get rattled, and in this week's Crimson Tide Spotlight, let's get to know a little bit more about the kicker from Hoover High, senior Will Reichard.
Good spot after the good snap, and the kick is up and good.
I just graduated this past May in business management. I plan on, at some point opening my own business down the road, and then right now I'm in graduate school, sports hospitality management, so I'm really excited for that as well. I chose to come to Alabama because I couldn't turn down playing for the greatest coach of all time. I was an in-state kid. I wasn't really an Alabama fan growing up, but now that I've been here, I'm an Alabama fan for life. When I first came in, our long snapper, Thomas Fletcher, was probably in the same spot as I am now, was a leader on the team, and it really brought me under his wing and kind of showed me what it was to be a leader as a specialist. So I think I've kind of embraced that role and learned a lot from him in order to kind of be that leader for our specialist group as far as and as the team. I get to interact with Coach Hustler a lot. He's very energetic. We talk on a daily basis, and I think he's going to be really good for us this year. He brings a lot of energy. He knows a lot about special teams, and I think he's going to be a big help to our group. When I first wanted to start playing in the NFL, when I was at the end of middle school, when I really started to get serious about kicking, I kind of quit playing soccer, quit playing basketball, and football was my only focus. So that was when the dream started that I wanted to play in the NFL.
The kick on the way, good from 52 yards. Will Reichard, a new career long in college.
My longest field goal in a game here is 52. I hit a 54-yarder in high school in a game, and then in practice I've hit a 72. Now that I'm in college, I really don't try to go back that far because it's just not realistic. You're not really ever going to get a chance to try that far. So really it was just in high school when I was messing around and just trying to see how far I could go back. But you never know. If it's a really good day and you have someone behind you, you can hit some far ones. Winning a national championship by far was the best moment. I only have one, and most people that come here have one or more. So I think that's something that we're striving for this year. So that was a big highlight. Both of the SEC championships that we've won was really big because I know a lot of other people that go to other schools don't have that opportunity. So those were probably the 3 biggest highlights of my career. To the fans, I thank you so much for your support. Roll Tide.
Somebody stop me, I'm on a groove.
There you see the Crimson Tide ready to go.
Go.
Campbell down in Alabama. There's Jacobs.
Taken by Layla Smith.
Down and Alabama's back on top. Blocked by Jacobs. And blocked
for Alabama. They needed serving direction.
Are you kidding me?
Ray. And a point for Alabama on a long rally.
Move.
It's Parker putting Alabama on the board. Oh, that squirts in.
Somehow, some magic for the Crimson Tide.
Tide cuts it up 20, 25, 30. Foot race. Forget catching him. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Alabama. 81-yard touchdown run. Young pump fake. Looks to his left. Rolls to his left. Stops. Looks into the end zone. Catch is made. Touchdown, Alabama. A hold from Burnham. The kick is up. And it is good. 52 yards. Will Reichard. 33 yards. Snap. Spot. Kick. All up. And good. Will Reichard boots it through with 10 seconds to go. And Bama leads it 20-19.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. Those were our ATI Plays of the Week. Now let's take a look at our Players of the Week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
You've seen both kicks multiple times already, but how can we not include the man who hit the game winner? Will Reichard kicked a 52-yard field goal, and then with the game on the line, calmly kicked the ball through the uprights from 33 yards out for the game winner as the Crimson Tide defeated the Texas Longhorns 20-19.
And in golf, senior Cannon Claycomb led Alabama to their first team championship in 2 years. Claycomb won medalist honors with an 11 under par performance at the Rod Myers Invitational in Durham, North Carolina. So big congratulations to our Legacy of Hope Players of the Week. Just a really winning week for the Crimson Tide this past week.
Winning week, and I'm looking for a winning season, Roger, which we will cover back here next week for another episode of Tide TV This Week.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield,